Hello, and hello from the cat. She's mad because I closed the window, the curtain. Anyway, um, today we're making shepherd's pie. Oh, hello. This is Amaris. I'm Amaris. Um, this is Eat to Treat, and we are a nonprofit that aims to end health disparities. I'm Dr. Amaris Williams. I have a PhD in nutrition. I like to cook. I like to eat. Only good food though. And today we're making shepherd's pie, and this is going to be kind of involved. So I'm going to be moving fast, and that's just because I'm using a lot of vegetables. You can pick and choose which vegetables you want to use, and so you'll be able to catch up if you need to catch up while I'm cutting some vegetable that you're not using. So without further ado, let's get started. Um, okay, so first up, as always, whenever we have um, a recipe that involves some sort of libation, we start by pouring ourselves some. Now, this recipe calls for 12 ounces of stout or porter or some dark beer like that, like a brown oat ale would be a good one as well. Um, I went to three breweries yesterday, three local craft breweries, and picked the best one. And the one that I liked the most was called Astrological Love Lounge. Astrological Love Lounge, and this is from I think Seventh Sun. Yeah, Seventh Sun Brewery in Columbus, Ohio, and this is a chocolate milk stout. And I got a huge can of it because if I got a regular size can, the whole thing would have to go to the recipe, 12 ounces. So um, I got a big can, and I'm not gonna drink all of this in one sitting, especially not on camera. And then I will pour myself a nice serving, and then the rest will go in the shepherd's pie. So, cheers. Well, let me. I didn't pour this well. I'm not a frequent beer drinker, so I'm gonna wait for the fizz to go down. All right, next up, let's get the potatoes going. I've got a pot full of water here. I've got about 8 cups of water in there. I'm using three extremely large potatoes, and you can use four if yours are smaller, or you can use three, whatever you need to do. I'm going to peel mine because I haven't scrubbed them, so they're still a little dirty. Get the dirt off. And I'm going to turn the water on now, so let me just go ahead and turn it up. I put it on 8 out of 10. Um, for mashed potatoes, it doesn't really matter if you have the water cold when you put the potatoes in there, or um, or if you put the potatoes into already boiling water. When that matters is when you're having potatoes that are going to be served in chunks. So you know how sometimes you cook potatoes and it's like a lot of starch built up on the outside of the potato chunks. That's when you put it in the water while it's boiling. You'll end up with like starchy clouds of starch around your potato chunks, and that's fine if you want like a crispy potato and you're gonna boil them and then bake them until they get crispy. That's how you do that, is you put them in already boiling water, and they end up with this like starchy residue around the potato chunks, and then that starchy residue gets crunchy and browns in the oven, and that's how you do that. But for mashed potatoes, it doesn't really matter if there's starch on the outside of our potato chunks because we're just gonna mush them. So, alright, let me get rid of this. And then I'm also going to put a little bit of salt in the water that I'm boiling these potatoes in. This is optional. You do not have to use salt if you don't want to. But if you don't put salt in the water, you're probably going to have to put a little more salt in the potatoes themselves. It may be the same either way as far as the salt content of the finished product. I don't really know if anyone's done that experiment where they salted the water without salting the potatoes, and then didn't salt the water and then salted the potatoes to see what has more salt in it, but I don't know. So I'm not sure it matters which way you go. Alright, so now that we've got our potatoes peeled, I'm just going to cut them into rough chunks. These don't have to be pretty because we're going to mush them, and no one's going to see. So let me just get my board all clean, and then I'm just going to chunk them. And that's good for that. Cut these pieces in half. And this. Alright, so all this goes in the water, and I'm going to use a top. The top, boiling the potatoes with and without the top does affect something. I forget what it is, but I'm going to put the top on because we're making mashed potatoes, and it, like I said, it's not really that critical for mashed potatoes how you cook them. You just need to cook them and then mush them. So I'm going to cook them with the top on because it'll be faster. Alright. So that water is a little warm now, but it's not boiling, as you can see. And I'm going to put some salt in there, like I said. I was about to forget. And that should be good. And as an added bonus, my beer is now ready to drink, so I'm going to have a nice little sip of that. Chocolate milk stout. Okay. Next up, let's get the meat browning. I am using ground turkey. This is a 93% lean, 7% fat ground turkey. And I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil in the pan because it's only 7% fat, so it's going to need a little bit of help. And I'm just going to turn this on. I'm at 5 out of 10 on this one and 8 out of 10 on that one. So here's hoping my electricity can handle that. And I'm just going to put that in and let that get hot. And I forgot to get a rag to wipe my hands with, so I'm just going to go and get that right now. Okay, and I am walking a little weird. That's because I had surgery on my knee. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Okay, so I'm gonna put vegetables, like I said, in the stew. So the potatoes. So a shepherd's pie, in case you didn't know, is a beef stew that's been thickened and it's kind of like gravy-like, and with mashed potatoes on top. And then you put it in the oven, and then the potatoes get a little browned on the top. And then you cut it like a pie, and then you eat it, and it's delicious. Okay, so traditionally it's called a shepherd's pie because it's made with lamb. You can make it with whatever meat you feel like making it with. As I am doing today, I'm using turkey, but I've made it with lamb. It's delicious. I've made it with beef. It's delicious. I've made it with turkey. It's delicious. I think that's pretty much all the meats I've used. But I bet it would be good with bison and elk and antelope and bear and all this other meats that I've ever tried, which are like squirrel, whatever you have. Just make a stew, thicken it, and then put some mashed potatoes on top. It'll be good. All right, so I'm rough chopping my my onion. So what I've done is I just cut it like this. Well, after cutting it in half, I cut it, like that, and so that when I slice it, it comes into these chunks like this, and it'll break apart really easily, and that's what I want. So let me just finish slicing this one. And these pieces are too big. Okay, let's go ahead and throw that in there. Alright, do this half of the onion. Okay. And then the next thing I'm going to put in is the parsnips. I'm using parsnips. I didn't put it on the recipe as something that you had to have. I was at Kroger getting ground turkey, and I saw parsnips. They were a reasonable price, and I was like, ooh, those would be good in there. So I just bought some. This is a recipe that, like all stews, this is a recipe that you can just have veggies in your fridge that you need to cook and that need to do something with, and you just throw them in the pot, and it'll be good, because we're going to put stout in there. And if you don't always have stout on hand like I do, I'm sorry. Okay, parsnips. But you can also just go to your local brewery. I'm sure there's one near you, and get some dark beer. Dark beer is delicious. Alright, so parsnips are not like carrots. They're like carrots, but they're different from carrots in such that you want to peel parsnips. You don't always have to peel carrots if you wash them, but parsnips you definitely want to peel. And then sometimes parsnips will have a core that's really hard to cut through, and if that is the case with these, you'll see me rocking my knife back and forth as I cut through them, and that helps me get through the tough core of the parsnip. Definitely don't want to stick your fingers under the knife or grab hold of it in any way that endangers your digits. And it also helps if your knife is sharp. So I'm just going to cut the tips off, and then I'm going to slice them. I think I'm going to cut them in half here, and I'm rocking my knife up and down because that one has a tough core. This one has a little bit of a core as well. And I'm just going to slice these pieces here that are smaller, and then these bigger pieces I'm going to cut them in half like this, and then slice them. So let me just go on ahead and get to it. Okay. I'll cut these in half. It looks kind of like a banana. So this is not a banana. And if you're wondering, no, I have not been drinking the stout before this demo. I'm just in a good mood today. Okay. Let me get through that one. And then I'm cutting the top off of this one as well. And I'm going to cut it lengthwise. I may cut it lengthwise twice into quarters. Okay. And then I'm going to cut this one twice. Alright. And then I'll just slice it. So flavor-wise, parsnips are similar to carrots, except they're like a stronger carrot flavor. So if you like carrots, you'll probably like parsnips because it's like a strong carrot. So I use them whenever I can. And this is not how you're supposed to hold your stuff while you cut your knife. Let me display good techniques here. You don't want to hold your stuff with your fingers flat because it makes it easier to cut your hand. So you want to have your fingers curled like that and then hold your stuff so that your knife is impossible to cut your fingertips off because they're curled under. But it does make it a little harder to hold on to what you're doing when it's hard to cut. Alright. Okay. Next up is carrots. So if you're not using parsnips, you could have been cutting your carrots while I was cutting my parsnips. Other things that I'm going to put in this that I didn't put on the recipe as, you know, as a required thing. I'm going to put some mushrooms in there. I think mushrooms go well with the stout flavor and the Worcester sauce. And I'm going to put some frozen peas in because I think adding a little bit of color to this would be nice. We're going to have carrots, we're going to have parsnips, but a little green would be nice. And plus the peas give you kind of a sweet explosion in your mouth that's really good. So but you can also use other stuff in here. Kale, especially dinosaur kale would be good. What's the other one that I was thinking of just a few seconds ago? Spinach. You put spinach in there. I'll put it in towards the end. The kale you could probably put in towards the middle after your harder root vegetables like onions and carrots and parsnips. After you get that in there, you put your kale in. And the peas, I'm going to put those in at the end. The mushrooms I'm going to put in after my root vegetables. So, you know, just depends on the cooking time. Okay, I'm going to turn my potatoes down to 6 out of 10 because they're boiling now. You don't need to boil them too much. The starch will boil up and overflow onto your cooktop if you don't limit the heat. Okay, so carrots in. Let's give this a stir. I think I'm going to add a little bit more oil. I put 1 tablespoon in before, but I'm going to add another tablespoon. Okay. These that I feel like throwing in are little brown bell peppers. These came from my garden. A friend of mine gave me a plant for these brown bell peppers, and they're tiny, but they have a strong flavor, and I think they'll stand up well to the beef and the not beef, but turkey and the stout and the Worcester sauce and the beef stock that I'm using. I don't know why I'm using ground turkey, but I'm using beef stock, but that's what I'm going to do. It's going to be fine. It's going to be delicious. Alright, so I'm just going to rough chop these. Okay. And it's just a little bit, but that's all I had ready to go from my pot plant. Okay, next thing to go in is the mushrooms. As I said, and I've already washed these. I did remember to wash them this time. Proud of myself. Okay. I like chunks of mushrooms, so I'm just going to cut these into maybe quarters and have big chunks of mushrooms in my thickened stew. And I turn my potatoes down to 6, but it doesn't appear that that is low enough, so I'm going to turn them down to 5. So just check your potatoes. So as far as what we're going to bake this in, oh, well, first off, I didn't tell you to turn your oven on, and that's also because I forgot to turn my oven on. But turn your oven on to, let's say 375. Sounds good. This doesn't have to be exact. It can be 350, it can be 375. The only thing is that we are trying to brown the top of the mashed potatoes and have it a little crunchy on the top, and then creamy in the middle, and then the stew at the bottom nice and hot. So any temperature that you can accomplish that is good to go. Alright, so mushrooms are in. The dish, I was going to tell you about the dish. The dish that we're baking this in, I like it deep so that you can have a lot of stew at the bottom. The deepness is not so you can have a lot of potatoes on top. Potatoes, yes, they have fiber, but white potatoes especially are not as nutrient dense as the stew will be underneath it. So let's go for more stew and less potatoes, or fewer potatoes. Yep, so alright, so we got the mushrooms in there. Now, next up I'm going to put some celery in there after I have some stout. I've used a milk stout before, but not a chocolate milk stout. And this one does actually taste chocolatey. It's not as chocolatey as chocolate milk, but it's pretty chocolatey. So yeah, one person thinks I'm already drunk. I promise I'm not. And I wasn't taking my oxy that they gave me after they did my surgery. Okay, get your celery in there. Alrighty. Alright, so that's it for vegetables that I'm using, except for the peas. The peas will go in last. So, I'm going to turn this up because it's cooking really slowly. I'm at 6 out of 10 right now. And we're almost ready to add the flour, which is our thickener, and the liquid, which is going to be the stock and the stout. And then once we've got that ready and that's cooking up and reducing down, then we'll smash our potatoes. Okay, so As far as seasoning, one, we added onion and celery and carrot and parsnip and mushroom and bell pepper. But we're also going to add a little bit of thyme. I think I said 2 teaspoons of thyme on the recipe. So go ahead and put that in. You can also use fresh thyme, you can use dried thyme, whatever you have on hand. And then I've got a couple of bay leaves here. These are small, so I think I'm going to put 3 in there. Alright. And now, actually I'm going to take the bay leaves out. I'm going to put the bay leaves in when I put the liquid in, but before we put the liquid in, we're going to put the flour in and get that ready to go. So, I need 4 tablespoons of flour, which is the same as 1/4 cup of flour. But I don't have anything to measure with, so I'll be right back. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to put a 1/4 cup of flour in my stew here, and then I'm going to stir that up. And let that cook. And I might need to add more oil, but we're going to see. It depends on how dry this is looking. So the whole point of this is we're going to let the oil absorb, or the flour absorb all the oil and kind of get separated so that it doesn't clump up when we add the liquid. And then we're going to also cook the flour a little bit because raw flour just doesn't taste good. So the point of adding the flour before you add the liquid is to prevent clumps and to cook the flour. Alright, so I'm not going to add any more oil. I think that we are good. The 7% of fat from the meat and the oil that we've already added was enough. If you're using 99% lean, then you probably need to add a whole lot more oil. Okay, so I'm going to add the stout first, because that will help deglaze the pan, and deglaze is just a fancy word for saying get all the stuff that's stuck on the bottom off. And the stuff that's stuck on the bottom is flavored, so we want that. So 12 ounces is the same thing as a 1.5 cups. So I need 6 of these 1/4 cups. That was 3. This is 4, 5, and 6. So 1.5 cups of stout in. And go ahead and use your spoon or whatever you're using to get the stuck stuff off the bottom of the pan and get it dissolved into the stout. And also you can put your bay leaves in. Oh, that smells so good, the chocolate. I can smell the chocolatiness. Okay, the next liquid that we're putting in is 2 cups of beef stock. You can use whatever stock you want. Like if you're making a ground chicken based shepherd's pie, you can use chicken stock. I don't know if I would use Worcester sauce if I were using a chicken, you know. So this is, container is 4 cups of no salt added beef broth, and I'm just going to add half of it because again I don't have anything to measure with. And that's it for the stock. Oh, tomato paste. Sorry, how much tomato paste did I say? 1 tablespoon. 1 tablespoon of tomato paste. Ideally, you put the tomato paste in before you put the liquid in, but it's fine. I should have put the tomato paste in when we put the flour in, and then stirred in the liquid, but whatever. This is going to be just fine. Alright, so tomato paste is in. I'll put that in the fridge. And we're just going to stir it in there. I'm going to turn up my heat a little bit to 7 so that this gets boiling, starts reducing. Turning down my potatoes to 4 because 5 is still too high. And as soon as the tomato paste is dissolved, I'm going to pull these potatoes out because I'm sure they're cooked by now. But what we're going for is something that doesn't offer much resistance when you stick a fork in it. So when you get your potato chunks and you stick a fork or a knife or something in there, you shouldn't have to push hard, basically. Where are we? 32 minutes. Okay. We're almost done. Don't worry. Alright, so potatoes. I'm going to turn these off. And that's starting to boil a little bit. You guys probably can't see it, but okay. So let's talk about mashing potatoes. This is your standard potato masher. I got this at a garage sale for 50 cents. It's great. This is a potato ricer. Now, if you want fluffy, just airy, confection-like potatoes, you want to invest in a potato ricer. This one, I think it was, oh, I still got the IKEA sticker on it. I think it was like $10 to $12. You can see I haven't used this yet because I think that slightly lumpy mashed potatoes is fine. I use this and some forks, and it works just fine. This, I don't know. It comes highly recommended by a lot of people, but I don't know if it's worth the effort. This is hot. But let's see. Let's try both of them. So I'm just gonna take out a chunk of potato, and let's make sure it's done. I'm just gonna mash it. Oh yeah, that is done. No resistance at all. So let's try one in the ricer. I did wash it. I don't know why I missed that sticker on there, but it has been washed. And I'll put the potato in there and then rice it. Oh wow, okay. So can you guys see that, or my ricer's in the way? It just basically turns it into fluffy little potato worms. It's like little strands of potato. I don't know if that's gonna focus, if you can see that. But that's why it's fluffy, and the masher just mushes everything together. This separates stuff. So it depends on how fluffy your end product you want that to be. So totally up to you. You can use a fork, or you can get a 50 cent potato masher at a garage sale. You may even find a potato ricer at a garage sale. Okay. And then what we're going to be adding to these potatoes is milk and sour cream. The sour cream is mostly for flavor. Give you a little je ne sais quoi. Oh, Oh man, the stout smells so good in that pot. I think I'm gonna have to use chocolate stout all the time, just so I can smell it. Okay. And almost done. Actually, this is probably enough. So again, just made a mess. Part of the reason why I like potato mashers is because they just make quick work of things. The ricer seems fiddly. Seems like you're gonna have to do several batches. But this has basically mashed the potatoes in just a few seconds. Okay, so now let's just add our stuff to it. I'm gonna taste them. I did add salt to the water, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. So I'll taste it, see what it needs. Not bad. I think it could stand to have a little bit more salt, or I could add cheese to it. Now keep in mind, if you do add cheese, you're adding fat. You're adding protein, unless it's fat-free cheese. If it's fat-free cheese, then go for it. I don't see any reason to hold back. But if it's not fat-free cheese, you're adding fat and protein. So just keep that in mind and be sparing with it. Alright, so skim milk. I forgot how much I said. Half a cup. Half a cup of skim milk. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. And then I will add... Oh, I didn't add the Worcester sauce to the stew. So let me go ahead and add that. If you haven't added yours, it's 1 tablespoon of Worcester sauce. That was supposed to go when we put the stock in, but it shouldn't make much difference. Alright. And then the other thing is a 1/4 cup of sour cream in the potatoes. So don't put the Worcester sauce in the potatoes. I don't think that will taste good. And don't put the sour cream in the stew. That's probably not going to help. Alright. So, 1/4 cup of sour cream in the potatoes. And we're almost done. So I'm going to taste my potatoes again after I've got the sour cream in there. The skim milk probably is not going to add much flavor. It'll just alter the texture a little bit and make it smoother. But the sour cream is going to give it a little bit more flavor. And then I'll adjust the seasonings with salt. And then I'll taste the stew and adjust that with salt and pepper. Okay, let's get a taste of this going. It does need a little bit of salt. And some cheese, really. I may have to go get some cheese off camera. Put it in there. Okay. So I put a little salt in there. And keep in mind that most cheeses, even the fat-free cheeses, also have salt in them. So if you are adding cheese, you're adding salt. So if you think your potatoes need salt and cheese. Just put the cheese in there first, then taste it again, and then salt it if necessary. Since I just salted mine, I guess I'm not going to put any cheese in there. Okay. These are looking fluffy and delicious. And I didn't even rice them. Okay, these are good. That's ready. Now, let's get this stew situated. It looks pretty good. You can take the bay leaves out now, or you can leave them in and let your guests take the bay leaves out. You just have to remind them not to eat them. Because if you bake it with the bay leaves in there, it's going to release more flavor. But we got stout in there. It's not, you don't need to have too many bay leaves too. Let me take my bay leaves out. Okay. Alright, got my bay leaves. So the only deep dish pans that I had, or the deepest pans that I had, are these loaf pans. So I got 2 loaf pans here that I'm going to use. And this is really simple. You just put the stew in the bottom, and then layer the mashed potatoes on top. Then put it in your preheated 375 degree oven and bake it until the top is brown. If you make peaks in your potatoes, then the tips of the peaks will brown and kind of get a little crunchy, and that's when you take it out. But if it's just one flat layer, you're not going to get as much browning. So kind of like put a little artistic peaks and decorations in your potatoes. Okay. This stew is has thickened, but I don't think it's quite thickened enough for me, and I'm not going to wait around on camera and let it thicken. So I'm just going to simmer this a little bit longer. I don't think you need me to show you how to put stew in a pot, in a pan, and then put potatoes on top of that. I think you can figure that out. You guys are smart. All right. So let me just do an outro, and we'll see each other next the 3rd Saturday of this month. So let me just change the view. Okay. So thank you for joining. We made shepherd's pie, or almost made shepherd's pie. I also made a mess, as you can see, and I had a good time. Can't wait to eat the stew, and the potatoes, and, oh, is there a question? Almost done, but I'm ready. Okay, yeah, I'm ready to eat this, but the good thing about stout is kind of filling, you know, it's like a meal in a glass. I am not recommending that you eat this as a meal. This is not a meal replacement. Okay. Alright, so bye. Thank you for joining. Bye. I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.